Welcome everyone. In this video, we're going to talk about my take on the Green Mega Caffeine deck of the Vibes TCG. Since we last covered this deck, there's been some significant changes to the deck list, so I figured this would be a good time to kind of just redo the deck guide from the beginning. So in this video, we're going to first talk through all the cards in the deck, their role in the deck, and kind of how to use them. Then we're going to talk a little bit about different tech card choices you could make, as well as some budget substitutions. And after that, we'll talk about the strategy of the deck. So, first, talking about the mulligans of the deck, and then the different win conditions. And finally, we're going to jump into some games to see how the deck performs. All right, let's jump in. So, this deck has two main engines inside of it. So, the first one is the Green Mega Penguin Too Much Caffeine engine. So, Green Mega Penguin basically says, as an additional cost to play this penguin, ice a penguin in your huddle. This penguin can't be chosen by anything. And then Too Much Caffeine says, at the start of action time, each player may choose a penguin, flop those penguins. So basically, what happens is you have a Green Mega Penguin on the board, and you have a Too Much Caffeine on the board. And so you can flop their biggest threat with a Too Much Caffeine, but they cannot flop your Green Mega Penguin back. And so in a standard deck, there's usually only like two or three penguins that are like very big in the deck in total that can outgrow your Green Mega Penguin. And so therefore, you just flop those with Too Much Caffeine, and then you win with Green Mega Penguin winning the vibe checks. Because this is also a very aggressive deck, right? Your opponent usually doesn't have that much time to set up their counterplay to this combo. So that's kind of the one win condition engine. And then the other one is basically Popcorn Penguin. So Popcorn Penguin says, right, at the start of your action time, ice a penguin in play that's vibing the least. If there's a tie, you pick. And so you basically have Popcorn Penguin, and then you buff it with either Sliding Penguin, which says at the start of action time, choose a penguin and boost its vibe by 2 for the rest of the cycle, or you buff it with Inspiring Story, which also says basically at the start of action time, boost the vibe of every penguin in your huddle by 2 for the rest of the cycle. So you end up getting your Popcorn Penguin to get a vibe of maybe like 4 or 6 or even 8. And then Popcorn Penguin can just remove every penguin on your opponent's side of the board. Inspiring Story also has a really good interaction where it also works with Green Mega Penguin because it doesn't choose anything, right? It just says all of your penguins. And so, or every penguin. And so Green Mega Penguin can actually get buffed by Inspiring Story. So together with Inspiring Story, Green Mega Penguin can easily become like 10, 12 vibe, which means a lot of decks do have like penguins in that size range, but you can outgrow those. And then you only need to flop with Too Much Caffeine, your opponent's penguins that are bigger than that. So, okay, so that's like the core engine of the deck. But right, this is a very aggressive deck. So the other really important thing is to win the vibe check early. So we actually are running the full suite of 12 two drops. In the past, I've only run 10 two drops, but I've come to realize that it's really important to have 12. And you really just want to be that consistency of this deck really relies on winning the vibe check on turn 2. So the most important two drop is Introvert Penguin because it's basically you will always win the vibe check unless your opponent also has an introvert penguin. Because introvert penguin has 6 vibe. Now, the condition of introvert is it doesn't participate in vibe check unless it's the only penguin in your huddle. But, on turn 2, it will be the only penguin. And later on in the game, there's like, right, it doesn't really matter because your green mega penguin will be your biggest penguin. Plus, introvert penguin will very often be the penguin that you ice in order to play green mega penguin. So introvert penguin is the ideal 2 drop to play, just because you don't want to risk not winning the vibe check. Now, if you are going second and you already have a good play for the third turn, right, and you have a introvert and a different 2 drop in your hand, and you know you're going to win the vibe check even with the other 2 drop, at that point you would consider maybe not playing introvert. The other 2 drop that is really amazing in this deck is Supportive Friend. Now, again, this is also a neutral 2 drop, and again, right, this deck has no actions in it, and so therefore the fact that Introvert and Supportive Friend don't produce Pudge is not a problem at all. And Supportive Friend, right, the way that this works is when you enter the huddle, you may choose a penguin and put 2 vibe counters on it. So on turn 2, right, you put the vibe counters on Supportive Friend, and it becomes a 2/4, which is the biggest 2 drop you can have with the exception of Introvert Penguin. But there's so many little tricky plays you can do with Supportive Friend throughout the game. In the late game, the flexibility of putting those 2 vibe counters not on Supportive Friend can cause a lot of little situations to work well. So, especially when you're doing bashful swordsman stuff, you can either cause your opponent's penguin to get iced, or you can really push yourself over the edge on that final vibe check. Also, with popcorn penguin, there's some situations where you can put the two vibe counters like on popcorn penguin, and then you can use support a friend as the penguin that gets iced with green mega penguin on the following turn. And then you all of a sudden you have a buff popcorn penguin without the downside of the popcorn penguin targeting your supportive friend. So supportive friend definitely has a little more flexibility than your standard 2/4, your basic 4 vibe 2 drop. So that's why it's in the deck. Now the final one is unfortunately we just have to run a vanilla 2/4. Now I like running the green one, blossoming penguin. The reason for that is that, uh, right, there's a lot of other green cards in this deck. So you can kind of cosplay as the green aggro deck because there's sliding penguins, popcorns, even inspiring story, green mega penguin. So there's a chance that your opponent won't realize you're playing caffeine until maybe turn 6 or 7. And in that case, you can get an advantage because they might misplay because they don't know exactly what deck you are. But if you want to play some mind games, you can throw any of the 2/4s in. And depending on the meta, right, there might be some other ones where uh, it's more valuable to trick your opponent on turn 2. Whereas the reason, yeah, like the reason I like the green one is that you can keep the trick going for much longer. I think the downside of the green one is, right, the green aggro deck and the green caffeine deck play very similar. So your opponent probably is going to make pretty similar decisions against both of them. All right, so those are the 2 drops. So let's talk a little bit about our card filtering. So I'm not going to call it card draw because you don't actually technically draw any other cards, but it really helps you filter through your deck, or in Magic terms, scry, in order to find the cards you need. And so, right, because this deck um, has a lot of like combos going on in it, like green mega caffeine, green mega penguin with too much caffeine, sliding penguin with popcorn penguin, and inspiring story. And we'll get to the finisher. The finisher is also a combo. So like it's very important to kind of have the right combination of cards. And because you don't run any actions, there's not really a lot of good ways to draw cards. So what instead we have is we have card filtering. So the first one is Sneaky Penguin. And Sneaky Penguin is really strong, in my opinion, just because it is happens every turn. And it says at the start of your turn, look at the top card of your deck. You may put it on the bottom of your deck. So, right, you don't draw an extra card, but you get to see an extra card. And so, like, if you're in a situation where you really need that green mega penguin or you really need that extra too much caffeine, it's effectively like drawing a card in the sense that you get a card deeper into your deck. Um, and then the other card that is really good is BounceHouseRod because you're typically winning the vibe check, which means that whenever you win the vibe check, right, a rod gets placed face down. And so you can end up with 3 or 4 cards that are rods that you never played as rods, or you'll have rods that you played in the early game that you then in the late game actually realize that you ended up needing. Like for example, you might play a bashful swordsman or something like that. And so bounce house rod basically lets you swap the card you naturally drew, which was a bounce house rod, for any card that's a rod. And so in this way, you get a lot more optionality. And so I really think that with these 2 cards, you can really make the deck a lot more consistent. Sneaky Penguin also has one other benefit, which is like sometimes you just don't draw your 2 drop. If you don't have your 2 drop, then on turn 3, you just need to play something. And Sneaky Penguin can sometimes win you the vibe check, or at the very minimum, be that penguin that you ice when playing Green Mega Penguin. All right, finally, let's talk about the finishers in the deck. So this is one of the areas where the deck list has changed a lot from how I used to have it built. So the first set of finishers is Bashful Swordsman Penguin, which says whenever this wins a vibe check, if this penguin is unflopped, ace that penguin, which is a 3/14. So this is by far the largest penguin you can get for 3 fish. And what a twist. And so what a twist says, it's a saucy action that says you can only play this action if it's face down as a rod. Flip this card over and play it. Choose a penguin and unflop it. So the way that this combo works is, right, you might have a too much caffeine on the board. You'll then play Bashful Swordsman, and then your opponent will flop the Bashful Swordsman, and then you'll unflop it with What a Twist, and then you'll win that vibe check. Bashful Swordsman also works as great removal. So let's say your opponent has like an extrovert penguin that grew to be a size of 20. You can then play your Bashful Swordsman, and it will actually ice their big penguin. So with too much caffeine and What a Twist, you have a lot of control of flopping and unflopping things. And Bashful Swordsman is one of those cards that is really powerful as you unflop it or unflop it based on what you need in that situation. And then the final finisher is SilentSnowGlobe. So SilentSnowGlobe is mainly in here for the BizBunk matchup, just because that matchup is kind of it's one of the harder ones for the deck, and it's one of the most common decks. And BizBunk is just one of the most strong decks. So by running 4 SilentSnowGlobes, I find the BizBunk matchup is really, really favored for this deck because BizBunk really struggles against SilentSnowGlobe. Because right when you think about how BizBunk works, what do they have? They have Bunkus, but Silent Snow Globe completely neutralizes Bunkus. They have the Bismo win condition, which it also neutralizes. So, and that at that point, the only really penguin that they have is they have Bashful Swordsman Penguin, and they have Penguin who breaks the fourth wall. So as long as you can get penguins that are bigger than those penguins, you'll end up just winning all the vibe checks towards the end. Bashful Swordsman Penguin also works really well with Silent Snow Globe because, right, Silent Snow Globe removes the ability. So it's very common on your final turn with this deck to basically play Bashful Swordsman and then Silent Snow Globe. Because what happens is, right, the swordsman loses its abilities, so it just becomes a straight up 14 vibe penguin that doesn't end up icing itself. And right, your opponent then will have to deal with probably a green mega penguin that at that point has a vibe of like 10 or 11, a 14 vibe swordsman, and there's a snow globe on a board. So snow globe, while like for other decks other than Bizbunk, it can also cause a lot of issues, right? It turns off buffs, it turns off popcorn penguins, it turns off other interactions like penguin that doesn't mind goodbyes. So Silent Snow Globe is super strong. Just be very careful that you play it as your last card, right? Because after you play it, you can't play any more penguins. And also be aware that if you're playing a deck that has a board clear in it, if they board clear you, then you basically lose the game. So it's definitely a bit risky of a finisher, and it's not for all matchups. But the ones where it's useful in, it's super strong. All right, let's talk about some tech cards. So, right, if you want to change the tech cards, I think you can definitely remove some of the snow globes, and you could also run the finisher. Like you could probably run just 3 swordsmen and 3 twist or something like that, and maybe 2 snow globe. So there's definitely a few slots you could use. So what I would play in those spots is if you are wanting to play Bizbunk a different direction, Misplace is a different option than Snow Globe, which has right it has a different play style to it. I personally prefer Snow Globe because I think it's more guaranteed to actually win the game once you play it. But Misplaced definitely has its uses. Then you could also be running Bunkus. So if you're facing a lot of blue, putting a Bunkus or two in the deck will make it super strong. That being said, I don't think I've lost a match to blue with this deck in a while. So I think it's in general a good matchup against blue anyway. So I don't really know if it's necessary to put the Bunkus in. If you're worried about the mirror, you can definitely be playing Hot Rod. So Hot Rod is really it would be really good, basically just for the mirror matchup. Maybe against some green aggro, it could be useful. So yeah, so that's another card to consider putting in. And if you're really wanting to filter your deck more, Brainy Penguin. So Brainy Penguin can be good in the mirror as well because of that. Or if you're just like wanting to do well against yellow and you just really, really want to find your popcorn penguins, you could run Brainy Penguin. Um, but yeah, so I think those are kind of the tech cards I would consider playing. But in general, I like the list the way that it is on the right. Now let's talk about budget substitutions a bit. So the finishing package of Bashful Swordsman, What a Twist, and popcorn or and what's it called? And Snow Globe. Those are all rare cards. So I think the one other card you could consider putting in, and I guess we can put this into the tech card conversation as well, is Romulus. So if you're already playing What a Twist, you can throw in Romulus as well as just kind of like a beefy penguin. So if you don't have all the swordsmen, right, Romulus can kind of also fit into that slot. I personally just prefer swordsman because the cost is way lower and the vibe is higher, and it has the ability to ice stuff. But Romulus, in its own way, you can often just win a game by playing a Romulus if there's no caffeines on the board, and then it's just sometimes hard for opponents because you'll play it on like turn 4 or 5 just to keep up with that, or I guess turn 5. So in terms of the finishers, I think you're fine just to swap those out with any tech cards, and it won't really affect the performance of the deck. In terms of the main engines, right, you do have Green Mega Penguin, which is an epic. Um, I think this deck is very difficult without 4 of them. Maybe with 3 you can get by, but I think if you have less than 3, I would probably consider playing a more of a just a green aggro deck with Green Mega Penguin in it than this caffeine build, which is really all centered around Green Mega Penguin. Popcorn Penguin is kind of the same story. Like you want as many popcorns as possible, but right, if you only have like 2 popcorns, it's just your yellow matchup is going to get more and more difficult. So I guess that's one other card that you could play if you don't have all the popcorns is Gotham. So Gotham can also stand in to kind of help out in the yellow matchup or in the Bizbunk matchup. So I think those are kind of all the kind of tech cards. I recognize that a lot of the cards I'm putting in up for budget substitutions are also rare. But I think the way I'm thinking about that is like, right, you might only have 2 copies of SilentSnowGlobe, so then you might have 2 copies of Gotham instead of having 4 of each, and so then you could just put in 2 of each, and yeah, it'll still perform well. Alright, let's talk a little bit about the overall, strategy of the deck. So, let's start with the mulligans, and so the way that you mulligan in this deck is you really wanna look for the key cards. So, in my mind, the key cards are the first thing is you always want a true drop, but you never want more than 1 2 drop. So, if you have multiple 2 drops, keep Introvert, but if you only have 1 2 drop, Supportive Friend or Blossoming, keep that. Then I'm always looking just for the basically the key cards for winning the game. So that's Popcorn Penguin, Green Mega Penguin, and maybe Caffeine. I don't know if I would keep Caffeine on its own. I think I usually do, but I think it's really about Popcorn and Green Mega. Then if you have a Popcorn Penguin, I would keep a buff card with it, so Sliding Penguin or Inspiring Story. But I wouldn't keep Popcorn on its own, or I mean, I wouldn't keep the buff cards on their own. The only reason is if I knew I was playing against another Green Mega Penguin deck and I already had Green Mega Penguin, then I would keep Inspiring Story with it. What a twist! I would usually keep one copy of it, just because like you're gonna play a rod on an early turn anyway. But I wouldn't keep 2 copies because I'd rather have a shot at drawing a different card. Yeah, if you know you're playing green aggro or green mega penguin, which can happen if you queue against the same person twice, then I would not keep popcorn penguin. And similarly, if I knew I was playing against yellow, I wouldn't keep green mega penguin. Like against yellow, I would basically hard mulligan for popcorn penguin, with the exception of a 2 drop. And against the caffeine mirror, I would hard mulligan for green mega penguin, with the exception of keeping a 2 drop. So that's kind of how the mulligans work. Definitely don't keep any of the like finishers or card draw. If I have a really strong hand already, I would maybe keep Sneaky Penguin. Like if everything else was good and I didn't have something to do on on the third turn, then Sneaky Penguin could be kept. But in general, I don't keep it because I would rather just immediately get that draw to try to find one of the critical pieces of the deck. So let's talk a little bit about the strategy of how to play the game. So I think we've alluded to this a lot already throughout the rest of the video, but just to kind of like summarize it up into a quick section, I think you start by winning the vibe check early. So you have your 2 drops, and with your 2 drops, you basically play them, win the vibe check, and then you ramp out. You kind of let your opponent develop on the board a little bit, and then you play Popcorn Penguin into Sliding Penguin, into like a buff card. But ideally, you play your buff cards first. So if you can afford it, or if you have the cards in the right order, you would play the buff card first and then the popcorn penguin. And this is to protect your popcorn penguin from Gotham. And it also could protect it from your opponent's popcorn penguin. So you win the vibe check early, you get your buff cards down, and then you get your popcorn penguin out. Or you win your vibe check early, and then you get green mega penguin down as quickly as possible. Then in the mid game, you're either working on kind of using your popcorn penguin engine to kind of keep buffing it and remove stuff from your opponent's board, or you're basically playing too much caffeine to lock down their board, and you're trying to really keep them from being able to board clear you and remove your popcorn penguin. Then um, you'll be very quickly ramping out to having 14 permanents, and you want to end the game, or it's an aggro deck. You want to end the game with 0 cards in your hand. So you're basically then in the mid game planning out what you're going to do on your final turn. And so on that final turn, very often I will either just be playing like Swordsman and Inspiring Story. Maybe I'll be playing a Snow Globe. Um, and you just kind of like plan out that final turn and just put them in the situation to say, like, you have to do something here or I'm going to win the game. And even if they're able to do something, often preventing you from winning the game is just going to cost them a lot of resources. And then you're just going to go again the next turn. So you basically also want to pretty much play a rod every turn. The reason for that is to protect yourself against board clears. So, right, even though there's no like explicit board clear protection here, because you're running a lot of relics, and if you play a lot of rods, very often like they'll be in a situation where you just have like a green mega penguin and maybe a sneaky penguin on the board. You have like 8 or 9 rods and an inspiring story and a too much caffeine. So if they clear your board, right, they'll remove 2 of your cards, but you'll still have like 11 or 12 permanents on the board. And then the next turn, you're just back at 14 because you just play another rod and you play a penguin. And now it can be a little tricky. So that's something to think about. If you're playing a deck that is running board clears, you have to be a little more careful about playing too much caffeine because after the board clear, you want to be able to keep winning the vibe check. Um, and so, like, one of the interesting pieces with that is sometimes I hold back caffeine until I need it, like, kind of late in the game, also to surprise my opponent a bit. But the downside of holding on to too much caffeine is it can be very useful for flopping penguins that produce pudge. So specifically against yellow, too much caffeine can be very useful in protecting your popcorn because it can keep them off of 4 pudge, which is what they need to play, not your keys. So yeah, so think about the key removal that your opponent's deck is running, and then try to like play your too much caffeines in a way to flop their penguins so that you can prevent them from playing that removal. The one other thing is in the mid game, sometimes I think it's right to actually lose the vibe check if it's possible. And so this is something where yeah, like, once you're in a situation where you like, the whole reason to win the vibe check is so that you can have no cards in your hand on the final turn. But sometimes you just have such an aggressive start and so many cheap cards that you end up in a situation where actually drawing 2 cards is better than getting a rod and 2 cards just because, right, there's not really that much expensive stuff in this deck anyway. So, if you're in that situation, don't be afraid to lose a vibe check, but, keep in mind if it's a deck where there's the possibility of tying the vibe check, you probably wanna keep winning it so that you can have initiative. So that if the final turn is a tie, that you'll still keep the Baron. And then the final thing is really think about the end game. There's so much stuff in Snow Globe, like Snow Globe plus Swordsman, also Introvert. With Snow Globe, Introvert activates again. With Snow Globe, Green Mega Penguin ability is gone. So if you're playing the mirror matchup, I've won lots of games where I play Snow Globe and then use my too much caffeine to flop their Green Mega Penguin. Like let's say we each have a Green Mega Penguin, but theirs is bigger than mine. What I can do is I can play Silent Snow Globe plus Swordsman, um, and then all of a sudden I have 2 big things, and maybe their big thing is bigger than my big thing. But I can now flop it with too much caffeine. And again, right, what a twist. Bashful Swordsman in the end game, these 2 cards are just very critical in setting up situations where you'll win the game. Just be very careful with them when doing your math because Bashful Swordsman, right, if it ices itself, you end up losing a permanent. So if you have 14 permanents and you win the vibe check with Bashful Swordsman, you will not win the game. Similarly, what a twist ends up costing a permanent because you end up losing the action. So, in order to win the game with these, you're typically needing like 15 or 16 permanents. So, just something to keep in mind, but you'll get the hang of that math, especially because, it just took me a few games of losing where I didn't do that math right. And then you very quickly learn how it works. All right. So, that's the setup of the deck. So, let's jump into some games and yeah, let's see how we perform. All right, jumping into the first game, we can see in our hand we have a 2 drop, which is good. So we'll definitely keep that. But the rest of the cards are not any of the key cards. Um, Inspiring Story maybe if we had a Green Mega Penguin or a Popcorn, but on its own I wouldn't keep it. All right, so we got a Popcorn, which is good, and we also got an Extrovert. So we can definitely play that on turn 2. I think. When we think about what Rod we'll use, let's take a look. Yeah, so we'll definitely use the Blossoming Penguin. No, I guess we'll use the introvert as a rod because there's no reason that we need to have 2 introverts. I think in general, yeah, right. We did end up with a lot of 2 drops this game, so there's no really need to. Yeah, I think we'll be playing a lot of them as rods. I think there is an interesting point here with yeah, with Popcorn Penguin in support of friend, maybe there might be some way that this ends up working out in this game, just because everything else is looking a bit rough. Okay, so They played the 2-4, so we'll be playing introvert to win the vibe check. So I'll use blossoming penguin as a rod, just because there's no way that we'll need that card because supportive friend has much more flexibility. And so yeah, so let's look here. So we'll see what we win from the vibe check. Maybe we'll be using BounceHouseRod this turn. I also think that popcorn is actually not going to be very strong this game, just because of the we're playing against green, which is not the best matchup. So there is an inspiring story here. So is there a world where we play BounceHouseRod this turn so that we can play inspiring story next turn? But there's a chance we don't win the vibe check. So it's a little risky. But otherwise we wouldn't be able to play inspiring story next turn. So I think hmm, yeah, that's an interesting point. So if I play Bounce House Rod this turn, if they don't play a Curious Penguin, yeah, so let's do that. Because I think we're in a pretty bad position. Um, so yeah, and I don't really want to play a Blossoming Penguin here, because if they end up playing a buff Popcorn Penguin, I don't want to give it a target. And so I think because of that, yeah. So this was what I was afraid of, is that they would play Curious Penguin, because when they play Curious Penguin, then we don't have a good play for this turn. But the alternative, if we didn't play the Bounce House Rod that turn, we wouldn't have had a play for this turn anyway. So I think in general, I'm not sure if this was necessarily good or bad. But okay, so let's see here. Okay, so we got Sneaky Penguin, so we did get a play. Um, it's a little sad because and we'll use a Blossoming Penguin as a rod, because now we are going to lose this vibe check. Um, and it might be a long time till we get the vibe check back. But the good news is we do have now Inspiring Story into Popcorn, and the Popcorn will at least remove the Blossoming Penguin. So there's going to be a okay, and we'll remove the Success Penguin as well. So I think we have our plan. Um, we're gonna go Inspiring into Popcorn. And then I guess maybe we'll try to win the game with the Bashful Swordsman at the end, but we'll see what else we draw. Okay, Sliding Penguin is, I think, Inspiring Story is stronger, but yeah, with Sliding Penguin, we can get up to 6. So yeah, so I think we'll be playing, okay, and I think we'll take the Green Mega Penguin. I think we can't play it yet because we really need to get the Popcorn Penguin going. But yeah, I think with the Green Mega Penguin, we'll be able to then kind of win the final vibe check. I do worry that they're going to play a Romulus. So as they play a Romulus, we will be not in the greatest position until we get a too much caffeine. But maybe with the Bashful Swordsman, we would be able to outclass a Romulus. So not really 100% clear yet, but yeah. So at least at this turn, yeah. Now our popcorn is going to start being able to do some good work. Oh, there's a caffeine, perfect. So we can definitely play the popcorn, um, and we should we play the caffeine? Yeah, because that's going to help us win the vibe check. And then the question is, I do want to keep the sliding penguin because the sliding penguin will enable us to get the popcorn to 6, which will be necessary to kind of remove the curious. So yeah, so ideally, so what are we gonna get rid of with the popcorn? Ideally, we'll get rid of the sliding penguin, but right, they might use the sliding penguin here to boost the sliding penguin. So there's a chance that we won't be able to do that. Now, ordering is important. So we need to, yeah, so we won't be able to get rid of the sliding penguin. So we'll get rid of the curious penguin. I mean the success penguin, just because that has an ability on it. And now we can flop the curious penguin. So we will still just tie this vibe check. Um, or no, we'll lose the vibe check. So yeah, so next turn we can play the Green Mega Penguin to start winning the vibe check, and then, but again, right, if they play Romulus, we can flop it with the caffeine. So um, so I think we're in a decent position. Okay, second caffeine, that's perfect. So that'll go well with the Green Mega Penguin. Um, we are definitely a little behind in terms of like being able to play cards out from our hand. We don't need Sliding Penguin, so we'll put that at the bottom. We also don't need Blossoming, but that can become the rod. All right, so Green Mega will use the introvert. So we are like, right, because we could be at 14, we could be ending the game this turn. And the reason for that is because we did end up losing the vibe checks in the mid game. All right, so we want to, okay, so this is good. So we will, yeah, so we will get rid of the Blossoming Penguin this turn. And then next turn, right, we can use the sliding penguin and continue our removal. So we can flop the Romulus and we can flop the flop the sliding penguin. So then our we'll actually win this vibe check. And so the question is, next turn, do we want to play the Bashful Swordsman? And I think the nice thing is we can always flop it ourselves now that we have 2 caffeines. So, yeah, so I think we'll probably end up playing the, Bashful Swordsman here. So, I think that'll be a good idea. And I think this game has kind of just been everything fell into place in the right order, and you can kind of see both, win conditions. So SilentSnowGlobe, we don't need that in this matchup right now. So second popcorn is not useful. So let's see. We'll definitely play the sliding penguin. But then, right, if we play the second popcorn, so we do have initiative, but yeah, if we play the second popcorn, then we're gonna not. Yeah, then it's just gonna ice itself. So we'll play the bashful swordsman as well. We'll probably end up flopping this ourselves. Oh no, because they have their own bashful swordsman. So okay, so we're going full snow globe here. So yeah, so the question is, yeah, okay, so if they have a what a twist, then we're going to lose because yeah, we've managed to make it the whole game without a what a twist. So so it's good we played everything down. But yeah, the unfortunate news is we're going to lose to what a twist here. So now if we had our own what a twist, we would end up winning the game, right? Because if we had our own what a twist, we could flop our swordsman. So I think either way, I think we played this well. And we did get if they have a what a twist though, they're gonna get knocked off of 14. So we're gonna get one more turn if they have a what a twist. Okay, so um all right, so we have one more turn. So we are in a good position if we get a what a twist. So basically we have to just hard look for a what a twist with our sneaky penguin. So we have 3 draws, and if we get a what a twist, we'll win. And if we don't get a what a twist, we will still win if they don't have their own what a twist. Because right, our side of the board is bigger. Well, if they get an inspiring story, maybe that's not true. But so yeah, because if we each have a what a twist, right? Because we have inspiring story, we will win. Okay, so sliding. Oh wait, so sneaky penguin obviously you're right does not draw. So I guess we might as well play everything just for fun. Um, but yeah, so ultimately, if they have another what a twist, we will lose. So but yeah, so we're almost halfway through the deck, and we haven't seen any of our 4 what a twist. So that is a little unfortunate, but that's it's a card game. That's how it goes. So either way, yeah. So if they play another what a twist now, then we will um Oh, no, yeah, we're gonna lose anyway because we don't have a way to break the tie. Yep, so we needed an inspiring story there as well. Okay, so overall, I think we played it well. I don't see any obvious mistakes we did. I think the line of trying to buff up the popcorn was the right line, but, yeah, I think and if we had drawn a single what a twist any point in that game, we would have won this game. So, I think overall, obviously it's not ideal to lose games, but it's a card game and it definitely happens sometimes. And I think, yeah, also I think that was well played by our opponent. And I think yes, you can see there too the snow globe, right? They use the snow globe as well in that matchup. So that's another example of how the snow globe is a really powerful finisher for the deck, and it can really make those situations where right they look like they had no chance to winning into how they could win. All right, so now let's jump into the next game. So looking at our mulligans here, so we definitely keep the 2 drop and the Mega Penguin. So yeah, so let's see what happens with that. So okay, so we have all right, so we also have the 4. So so let's play the blossoming penguin because we don't need two drops. And maybe I should have kept I like keeping the supportive friend just because it has a little more optionality. But okay, so we're playing yellow. So we basically are full speed trying to get a popcorn penguin. And so let's see. Okay, so we need a popcorn penguin. So a sneaky penguin also would be good because it would help us get the popcorn. Okay, so there's the popcorn. So we're just gonna go the standard 2 drop into sliding into popcorn. Okay, wait. Okay, so it's not yellow actually. It is the so how do you call this? Like, so it's there's this like version of the Mega Penguin deck that uses what's it called? That uses like yellow splash into it. So do we need 2 popcorn penguins? I don't think we do against this deck because I think we'll be lucky to get value from 1. Um and we always have the bounce house rod in case we need it back. So I'd rather use the I would rather use the use the the popcorn penguin as a rod because the bounce house might have a little more optionality. Now, yeah, so we're gonna lose this next vibe check or keep tying the vibe check. So yeah, definitely not a great start for us. Um, right, an introvert penguin would have been really good. Oh, so sneaky penguin, perfect. Okay, so I really want the bashful swordsman for the late game in this matchup, but I have the bounce house rod, so I can always get it back if I need it, and maybe I'll draw another one. And so I think the bounce house rod is again, it's showing the flexibility here because I can either get the bashful swordsman or the popcorn because I think we're still going to try to use the popcorn penguin to kind of um, remove everything. Now the question is, do I play the sliding penguin first or do I play the popcorn first? Because technically, if I play the popcorn first, I can remove the flying penguin and then the sneaking penguin. But okay, no, now I can't because if I play the popcorn, then the sliding penguin will be able to protect the flying penguin. So I think this is going to be a double. Like I think they're setting up for popcorn as well, most likely. All right, so we don't need another sliding penguin. Okay, what a twist. Okay, so this game we have what a twist. So we'll be able to use what a twist at least in the end game if we need it with the swordsman. So let's see. Okay, so we will I guess we'll protect our sliding penguin. So okay, so they're most likely going to play popcorn, and then we will play a popcorn too. I think because and then both the popcorns will cancel each other. But then I could retrieve my other popcorn with the bounce house rod if I needed to. Um, Or maybe they'll play the Green Mega this turn, in which case I think I have to play the Green Mega Penguin as well because I don't want to be behind the clock on the growing of the Mega Penguins. Um, so yeah, but if I could get the Popcorn Penguin train going, okay, so right, they're gonna well, no, this is interesting now though, right? Because with their Popcorn Penguin, if they boost it with Sliding Penguin, then the Flying Penguin gets iced. And if yeah, so I think I just actually don't play a Popcorn Penguin this turn. I don't need another sneaky. Okay, yeah, I think okay, so I'll play this face down because I think if I play the green mega penguin here, yeah, the popcorn penguin actually will end up having to ice the flying penguin. So I think hopefully I'm thinking about this right. But I think this is one of the reasons I actually don't like playing the one drops in this deck is you can end up in this kind of weird situation that they've put themselves in where now their popcorn penguin is going to yeah, I think they're realizing it now that they've put themselves into this situation that is not ideal. Um, because yeah, so okay, well, let's see how they resolve this. But I can still, yeah, so the popcorn penguin will ice itself. Yeah, that's what I thought would happen. And at this point now, also we will win the vibe check, which is going to be good because that means we'll get initiative, which then means that our popcorn penguin will be able to remove their flying penguin first before it gets buffed. So overall, yeah, that was definitely a misplay on the part of my opponent. But I think that's a lesson I have learned the hard way. So, oh, good. And now we have an inspiring story. Okay, so let's take the caffeine because yeah, the caffeine is going to be great. And do we boost the inspiring story? I'm not sure. I do worry that if I don't play the bounce house rod this turn, okay, so I'm at 11, 12. So I need to play everything next turn. But yeah, let's so if I draw what a twist or a bounce house, this is a really bad move. Oh yeah, I think I should have played the bounce house to get the inspiring story. But right, maybe I need the bashful swordsman. So I guess I'm gonna play this a little slower. Um, but I think by playing it a little slower, right, I risk not being able to win next turn. But in the I do have the more flexibility where there's gonna be more specific situations that I will be able to handle. All right, so I'm gonna boost the popcorn either way, just to protect it from Gotham. And yeah, so okay, so I'll flop the. But yeah, so I think overall this is looking really good because right, as long as I don't draw a what a twist or a bounce house, I will be able to get on 14 this upcoming turn. Oh, and I also have sneaky penguin, so that will enable me to basically, I think, yeah, if the draw is something that is at all reasonable, I'll just take that. Let's see what I got here. Introvert, not important. Yeah, okay, so caffeine is perfect. So I think I'll take, okay, and I think I'm gonna take the inspiring. So okay, so I'll play the caffeine, right? And I make sure that the inspiring story is the one that gets flopped to pay for it. Then I bounce house the inspiring story, and then I play the inspiring story. Okay. So I guess I wasn't necessary to make sure the caffeine flopped the inspiring story because I still had one extra rod, but that's always good practice when you're going to play bounce house to make sure that you arrange your rods in such a way that you end up bouncing a flopped rod back to your hand. So too much caffeine was basically the perfect draw there. And so again here, so in this game also we can kind of see the core, both of the core mechanics of this deck working. So I think the one thing we haven't really seen is the end condition of the Bashful Swordsman WhataTwist. But I think in that previous game, you would have seen exactly how that would have worked. Because if we had the WhataTwist in the Bashful Swordsman, we would have won that game. So it was like the finisher, it's like the right finisher in the deck. It's just that the that we didn't draw it. Okay, so we'll flop both of their sneaky penguins, and yeah, I think this is just a clinical game where we end up, um, yeah, I think there's no issues here, and I think we'll close out the game here. All right, so let's see what else. Yeah, okay, so yeah, so we win the final vibe check, and then we're gonna be in a yeah, we'll be in a good state here, right? Because this will be the end of the game. And so I think another benefit of this deck that we didn't talk about yet so far is that the games are really fast. And so, right, that enables you to climb the ladder quickly. Okay, cool. So yeah, that's the end of this game. So yeah, so let's get ready to jump into the next one. All right, jumping into the next game, looking at our mulligans. So we do have Popcorn Penguin with Sliding Penguin, which is, you know, the best buff combo. And we have the Green Mega Penguin. So this is kind of a risky mulligan because I do want to keep these three cards, but we don't have a 2-drop. So yeah, so we might, yeah, okay, so we don't have any, yeah, the start of this game is going to be very rough because we don't have any 2 or the Sneaky Penguin even. So hopefully we'll draw it quickly. All right, so we're playing against some sort of red. And so most likely this is in general when I see red these days, it's really red mixed into the green mega caffeine shell. So if we're playing that type of deck, yeah, it might be a bit rough. I mean, the nice thing is we do have 2 popcorns. So what we can do in this type of situation is throw the first one out just to deal with a contemplative penguin, and then buff it after the fact. So yeah, but we really want a 2-drop here. Okay, so we have another popcorn. All right, so we have 3 popcorns. So we definitely will have no hesitation throwing out a popcorn on turn 4. Now, right, maybe they'll play an inspiring story by then. Um, I'm almost tempted to play the swordsman just to win the vibe check, but I think at that point it doesn't really matter because yeah, so that's actually not a useful play because right, it's not going to accelerate us. That would accelerate us to turn 5, but we don't need to get to turn 5. We need to just get to turn 4. So we basically missed our opportunity. Okay, so they're going to just cycle a trust fall, which will also result in the vibe check getting tied, which is again, doesn't really matter for us either way because at this point, right, we missed a 2-drop. So we're not playing Sliding Penguin on turn 3. And so at this point, we're playing Sliding Penguin on turn 4. So the extra draw doesn't matter either way. Although, right, we're not going to actually play Sliding Penguin. We're going to play Popcorn Penguin unless they play an inspiring story. So let's talk a little bit actually about something else with this deck that is just something to keep in mind is, okay, I'm going to play the popcorn as the rod. I really don't think I'll need 3 popcorns. And I have the bounce house now to get it back if I need it. Right, because you're usually losing or winning the vibe check, you don't get the benefit of like reacting to your opponent. So one of the things that I just in general like a lot of the decks that I like playing in vibes are either these aggressive decks where you're dominating or it's one where you're reacting. And right, one of the disadvantages of playing a dominating deck is that when you have the initiative is you have to do your turn first. So in this case, right, I can see if they play an inspiring story, I don't need to play like playing popcorn is not the right play. But if they don't play an inspiring story, then playing popcorn is the right play. Um, and as you can see here with the sneaky penguin, right, we drew it 1 turn too late. So I think we won't need the swordsman here. I think in worst case we have the bounce house to get it back. So the nice news here is we will play that. Maybe they will remove it with a peace out, but we still have so many popcorns. So, and even if they use a got 'em, we'll still have gotten a 2 for 1. And so, okay, so they are not going to do anything. So at this point, I would rather play the inspiring story than the sliding penguin. And the reason for that is that right with the what's it called? The peace out penguin, they could get a 2 for 1. And I don't want to give them a 2 for 1 with a peace out penguin. So I think inspiring story is a good next play. Although, right, they didn't have a got 'em. So maybe that's not actually right. So yeah, because maybe I don't need to actually protect. Well, yeah, so maybe I should just well, I wanna get the Green Mega Penguin out on the board, but the problem is if I play it out now yeah, so I think I have to play the Inspiring Story. Um, I wanna get the Green Mega Penguin out on the board, um, but yeah, okay, so maybe next turn I'll play the second, um yeah, I'll play the second, Sliding Penguin, yeah, or the second popcorn? I'm not sure. No, maybe I'll just use this one popcorn to slowly whittle them down. Um, because yeah, we'll be able to remove one at a time. But yeah, so now in this case, right, if they yeah, so if I play the sliding penguin, well, if I play the sliding penguin, then they won't be able to use a piece out on both anyway, because they'll both be 6/5. So because I'm a little worried that they'll play inspiring story. Okay, so they play the striking swordsman penguin. So maybe I do play the second popcorn now. Oh wait, they're still winning the vibe check, so they'll have initiative. So yeah, so I could play the second popcorn here. It does mean I'm gonna lose one of them, but I think that'll be worth it because they're getting close to 14. So I do think I want to do something a little more drastic here. So yeah, I think double popcorn, right? If I do double popcorn, then the next turn, yeah, then the next turn I can play sliding to save one of my popcorns, but that's going to not save yeah, okay, no, okay, now I definitely do double popcorn because I want to take these piece outs off the board for sure. Oh, and I have introvert. Okay, so this is gonna be perfect. So I and sneaky penguin, right? I don't think I really need sneaky penguin because I have all the cards I need to win the game in my hand already. Ordering is important there, right? You have to make sure to boost with the inspiring story first. We'll get rid of both the piece outs, and so yeah, so and then next turn we will be able to. Okay, so yeah, I think we're gonna lose. We're going to lose a we're gonna lose a popcorn because there's not gonna be two targets. So I think we can play a Green Mega Penguin on one of the popcorns this turn. Um, oh, and we finally win the vibe check. Okay, so maybe actually, is there a way if we draw an inspiring story that would work, so that we could keep both of our popcorns. But right, I think it's probably. Let's see if we have an inspiring story here. No. Okay, so I think we just play a Green Mega, and I think we remove a popcorn penguin because right we only have one target right now. And I don't really wanna be dependent on them. Okay, so then I think I wanna keep the sliding penguin, but so okay, so I think the second green mega is not necessary. So I'll play that, and then I'll play the sneaky penguin. Okay. So, again, this is not the ideal way for this game for this, like, we've been on the back foot this entire game. Um, so, right, because we've been on the back foot, we haven't been able to, win the vibe checks, which means we end up basically not like, right, the idea is that at the end of the game, when we have 14, right, we wanna have 14 when we have 0 cards in hand, and we now already have 16 cards total. So, okay, so what did they do? They played another striking, um, yeah, are they gonna do a what's it called? Maybe they're gonna do a, drop of attention or something? Okay, they'll sunburn it. Okay, that's not a problem. Um, and then are they gonna maybe use a peace out? But with a peace out, they can just go 1 for 1. So I do think in general, Green Mega Penguin is hard for red to deal with. So I think I feel pretty good about the situation. And I think next turn I will just do I'll get back to this other popcorn just to keep my yeah, my popcorn penguins going. Because yeah, I think that way I can make sure that they don't get on 14 because I'll remove at least one card. Okay, so I'm not sure why they're playing WhataTwist here. Um, Yeah, I'm not fully seeing the logic there, but maybe I'm missing something. Um, oh, maybe they're gonna use the run it back in order to get the best seats in the house and then play that again. Or they just want to run the okay. I think they were just using cards at the end. Okay, cool. So another victory for the deck. All right. Let's jump into one more game. All right, taking a look, we have a pretty good hand, right? We have 2 drop into popcorn, into buff, and then a caffeine. So I think we'll keep this full hand. We also have the introvert as a 2 drop, which means we won't be in that situation where we're falling behind. And I think with introvert, it's pretty nice with this type of hand because you can basically go straight into the story. Like you just skip your 4 drop, um, and then go from the story. And then we also have the caffeine to play with the popcorn penguin, which is really good because then we can protect the popcorn a little bit, like keep them off the pudge. So let's see. Okay, so there's some sort of green. Um, there are definitely some sort of green aggro buff type deck. But okay, so this turn we have the introvert. So the question is, do we just play the popcorn next turn actually? But I think if we do, then they'll just sit back and wait. So I think we'll play it a little slower. So yeah, I think we'll play it slow and then we will hopefully be in a situation where we will yeah, I think we okay, now we have another inspiring story. Okay, so I think we will just do nothing. I think we will just go inspiring story into popcorn into another inspiring story because I don't want to lose my popcorn to a Gotham. And I think at this point we'll still keep winning the vibe checks because the introvert is holding down the fort pretty well. So okay, so then yeah, and I think there's no rush. Maybe this turn they will play but even if they play like a sliding penguin or something, right? With the inspiring story, our introvert will be bigger. It'll be 8. Okay, so we don't do we keep this? Okay, so next turn. Yeah, well there's really no need to okay, so do I want to keep okay, cuz next turn if I win this vibe check, then I can go I can go sliding and popcorn the turn after, right? If I play something here. But I do kind of yeah, I think I'd rather keep the inspiring story cuz I'm not going to run out of stuff to play. Like and I don't need to get the popcorn that boosted this turn because either way it'll be able to take out the sneaky penguin. So, yeah, so I think yeah, cuz the argument for doing it the other way is yeah, I could have like played the caffeine as the rod, I guess. But I think this way it's more yeah, it's a little slower of a game plan, but I'm still going to be able to get my hand emptied in time. And I worry about playing the sliding penguin because it's a potential target for removal. And there's really no yeah, and if I ever get a green penguin, I want it to be able to outgrow their Romuluses. Okay, so we got a popcorn. Okay, so this is actually nice. So we could actually play double popcorn. But so if we play double popcorn, yeah, playing double popcorn would be great. Um, but then the problem is I don't know what I would if I play so I'm gonna start losing the vibe check here. So if I play double popcorn, then starting next turn, hmm. Yeah, do I give up the caffeine? That's the question. But I think no, I think I'm just gonna play a single popcorn. I think I'm just gonna play a single popcorn. Okay, and then I guess I will. Do I play the caffeine? Yeah, I guess I'll play the caffeine. Okay, so that was a really tricky turn because I'm not really sure because double popcorn would work there. Um, yeah, because I'm gonna start losing the vibe check though. So yeah, okay. So now that they have inspiring stories, so I think it's good to have the caffeine. Um, so okay, so we're gonna get rid of the penguin whose garden grows. But right, I really don't have any way to win the vibe check, so I need something big. Um, so yeah, so they're gonna start winning the vibe check, and yeah, so playing 2 popcorns this turn, well, will not really work because yeah, because right, I'll be facing up 8-6 because they're gonna have the initiative, and I'm gonna have 2-6 or 2-4 penguins. So yeah, so we'll definitely have to play the inspiring story so that the popcorn can at least take out one of their penguins. Although if they play another inspiring story, then the popcorn will fizzle, which will be not ideal. Okay, another introvert is not useful. So yeah, so I think we definitely need to at this point get some of the finishers here. Yeah, if they play another inspiring story, it's not going to be good for us. Um, so that's something that I'm a little worried about is if they get one more inspiring story, I guess. Yeah, but I think if they had it, they would slam it. Although I guess they don't know that I have the other inspiring story. So let's see. Okay, no, they do have the other inspiring story. So that's not good for us because now we're gonna lose our popcorn. Even with right, because even with this inspiring story here, our popcorn is not gonna be big enough. But next turn, we'll be able to do another inspiring story and our second popcorn. And then, right, we will be able to remove something. So, right, even going like this, it's not gonna be sufficient because our popcorn will end up fizzling itself. So the nice thing here is at least oh no, we're not even gonna win the vibe check because they can flop our introvert. Okay, but yeah, at least we're gonna be able to next turn play inspiring story popcorn. Although they're maybe thinking maybe they want to lose the vibe check and get the extra card, but I think I would like that because yeah, although I still need some way to finish the game. That's one of the problems I have right now is I have no finishers. So okay, so they specifically want to lose the vibe check. Um, so I think they're thinking that next turn that they're going to be able to, although I don't think they're going to be able to get to 14 this next turn. So, yeah, so if we really need if we had a green mega penguin, so or a bounce house rod, I think that would be really good for us. Okay, so we did get that. So I think we'll play that. Wait, do we have? Okay, so we have enough here. So I think we play the popcorn this turn. And then next turn we'll do the green mega penguin bounce house. Because I highly doubt that they're gonna be able to get to 15 this turn or to 14, right? To get to 14, they'd have to play 4 cards, which means they would basically play a rod. Oh, but they'd have to get to 15 because well, yeah, they'd have to get to 15 because the popcorn will remove 1 card. So I think we have 1 more turn. And by the time we play the green mega penguin next turn, right, it's gonna be pretty big. Like well, it won't be as big as Romulus, but we have the too much caffeine. So what would really be good is actually a swordsman. So if we could get a swordsman, well, it looks like they get a swordsman. All right, but I can let their swordsman fizzle this turn. Um, well, I'll leave their swordsman on flop, but maybe they'll flop it themselves. Like that would be the smart move on their part. But let's see. So we will yeah, we'll see what happens. Okay, so that will take care of that. I will flop their sliding penguin. So, but yeah, most likely they're trying to set up for a WhataTwist win condition, which in this case I think might actually end up working if they have a WhataTwist. Although with our popcorn, maybe we would be able to keep them off of 14. So let's see. So they'll probably flop their own swordsman here. Um, yeah. So okay. So what do we really want? We really want a swordsman. Um, yeah. So a swordsman would be good. I guess another popcorn would another popcorn help? No. Okay. So would our yeah. So with our green mega penguin, I think we have a chance at potentially. Okay. So blossoming penguin is not what we need, but we could potentially just play it just to get another permanent on the board. So let's see. Um, hmm. All right, so they're gonna play a popcorn, which means that our popcorn. Okay, so the popcorns are gonna just trade. Um, okay, so that's not ideal. But okay, so sneaky penguin is not what we need. All right, so the question is, do they have a green mega? Well, okay, so we need to definitely play the green mega. So how much else do we have? Okay, so we'll play the sneaky penguin, I guess, because yeah, we might as well. So the question is, if it's gonna go one more turn or not. Um, yeah, so the green mega is good. All right. Do we get rid of the do we get rid of the popcorn? No, I think we get rid of the introvert. And okay, so either way, they're gonna have to unflop, right? Because they're gonna lose 3 permanents. So I think we'll be good for one more turn. Um oh no, we're not. Right. Ugh, no, that was played very poorly on my part because right, the popcorn is gonna hit the popcorn is going to hit the what's it called? I shouldn't have played the sneaky penguin. That was a critical mistake. If I didn't play the sneaky penguin, because now the popcorn is gonna hit the sneaky penguin. Um oh, no, wait. No. Okay. Actually, maybe it's fine because of the way the ordering works. Okay. Yeah, okay. It's fine because of how the ordering works. All right, so critical mistake avoided. Um, so yeah, so let's see. Okay, because right, they're gonna lose their popcorn to our popcorn. And so what will happen now is yeah, so okay, so our Green Mega Penguin did not seem to get buffed from the inspiring story, but I don't know if that's a visual bug or if that's a an actual bug. So we'll see in the vibe check how that goes. Because right, theoretically, our Green Mega Penguin should be 13 right now. So we'll see in the vibe check if it's 13 or not. Yeah, because it's got its +1 counter on it. And so we do have our own WhataTwist, but that doesn't help. But here, right, the blue swordsman. All right, so it's a visual bug. So the Green Mega Penguin is actually winning the vibe check. So right, they're gonna lose their blue swordsman, which means we will have one more turn. So let's see what happens here. Um, so we do have the snow globe, which I don't think helps us here. Um, but yeah, so let's see what they play because right, they've used the WhataTwist already. They've used their swordsman. So if they have their own green mega, our green mega is bigger because we have one more inspiring story and our green mega is on the board one more turn. So really the only thing I think that they can do is play another swordsman and have another WhataTwist. Um, but or they could play a snow globe. If they played a snow globe, that could definitely cause problems for us as well. Okay, but them playing a green mega is not necessarily a problem because our green mega is just bigger. All right, we don't need a sneaky. We don't really need. I don't want to play the snow globe because I don't want to lose the green mega's abilities. So yeah, so I think we should be in a good space here. Um, so let's just keep in mind our green mega is going to be yeah, it should be 8 plus 2, 4, 6. So yeah, so I think overall we are in a good space here. So yeah, so let's take a look. I think right, we do have this small visual issue. So let's assume that so theoretically, so even if we don't win this game, we should have won this game, right? Because the green mega penguin is bigger. And I don't really see any cards that they have that can do anything about it. So let's see what happens in the vibe check. Okay, it looks like it was just a visual bug. So all right. So another game one for the green mega penguin deck. Or Green Mega Caffeine. All right, cool. So, all right, so that's going to be the end of the games today. All right, so in conclusion, the Green Mega Caffeine deck I think is one of the strongest decks in the game right now, especially for playing on the ladder. I think it has fast games, and it's actually with the new finisher package of the Bashful Swordsman, What a Twist, and Snow Globe. It's much more dynamic in the end game than it used to be. And so, yeah, so because of that, I really recommend this deck if you're trying to get a high place ladder finish. I think when we think about tournament play, I'm a little more hesitant about bringing this deck. I still think it would be very strong in a tournament, but I do think that the game plan is just a little bit too linear and that your opponent, right, the opponents in the tournament, the best players will know they have to beat this deck. And right, there are certain ways you can definitely tech your deck to beat this deck. Right, because it is a little like because it's so obvious what you're trying to do with it. Yeah, you can really play around it because even the like Bashful Swordsman What a Twist combo, it's still like all out there on the board. So in the end, I still, this is one of my favorite decks. I highly recommend it. All right. Thanks everyone for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.